Great. Well, I think it's time to get going. So to begin, thank you everyone for joining. Tonight's draft local plan consultation webinar will be focusing on the Crouch End and Muswell Hill neighbourhood sections of the draft plan. So, great. So here's a rough agenda for the session. We'll start with a brief introduction to the draft local plan itself, and then we'll spend 10 minutes running through the key aspects of the Crouch End Neighbourhood Forum chapter of the draft local plan. Then we'll move on to doing the same overview of the Muswell Hill chapter. There'll be a little bit of an explanation about how to respond to the consultation and the different options that you have for that. And then we'll try and allow as much time as possible at the end for questions. So please do submit those as they come to you during the session. And then we'll try and go through all of them at the end rather than sort of split through the session. And it's worth saying that hopefully this will be a useful opportunity to find out more about where you can find some of the detail on both Crouch End and Muswell Hill within the draft local plan website, and also our printed materials, as well as our discussion and Q&A session at the end of today. So to begin, what is the local plan? So the local plan is the main document that's used to determine planning applications in Haringey. And so it's a really important document. Once it's adopted, it means that any new planning application for new development that happens in the borough will need to comply with the policies and standards that are set out in this document. So, for example, some of the things that the plan does includes setting a vision for the kind of places that we want to live in, work in, and spend time in Haringey. Planning for future growth and infrastructure needs in the borough, allocating land for housing, jobs, shops, and green spaces. And it can also include things like where should tall buildings go in the borough. It also includes setting new targets and requirements for ensuring that we have high quality standards and that there's sustainable development that happens in the borough. And that also includes things like setting targets on achieving zero carbon. And it also protects heritage sites and has an important role in protecting the natural environment. Some examples of things that the local plan doesn't do include, it doesn't fund or deliver new development, and it doesn't cover the management of council services. So, for example, it doesn't cover the management of street cleaning or housing tenancies or street parking, whilst we do have planning policies about new development and how they should plan for those things. It doesn't include making decisions about the delivery of schools, hospitals, or transport projects, and it doesn't set council tax or budgets. Why do we need a new local plan? So it's a statutory requirement for local authorities to review their local plans every 5 years. That's dictated by national planning policy. And we have an existing collection of documents that was adopted in 2017 that currently makes up Haringey's adopted local plan. You can see a picture of some of those there on the screen. But a lot has changed in Haringey since 2017. So some of the important new changes that the new local plan needs to respond to includes things like changes to national planning policy and legislation. We've had a new London plan, during that time. So taking into account the changes in the London plan and making sure that the Haringey local plan aligns with that. The council has declared a climate emergency during that time. We have a housing crisis that continues to be a challenge, both at borough level and at London level and nationally. And there is a growing focus on health and well-being and the importance of that, especially in the context of ongoing impacts of COVID-19 and the cost of living crisis. So having a new local plan represents a key opportunity to consolidate our existing suite of policy documents as a council, to deliver on also exciting opportunities that we have coming up, such as being the London Borough of Culture in 2027, and an opportunity to address ongoing challenges that the borough's facing, for example, including the homelessness crisis. So there is a wider policy framework that our local plan sits within. We have to comply also with national planning policy framework. Any new development that happens in Haringey has to comply with that. It will also need to comply with the London plan, the North London Waste Plan, and any neighbourhood plans that are adopted. At the moment, Highgate has an adopted neighbourhood plan. And so that collection of documents that I flashed up on the screen just now, that represents our adopted local plan, those are the documents that will be eventually replaced by this draft new local plan that we're sharing with you today. So those documents that will be replaced include our strategic policies DPD, our development management DPD, our site allocations DPD, and our Tottenham area action plan. And then in addition to that, we as a team will be reviewing and updating supplementary planning guidance following on from the adoption of the plan to make sure that any extra guidance that needs to be published to help everybody understand how to comply with the plan is in place. So where are we on the journey to creating a new local plan? So the various stages of the journey to creating a new local plan are part of a statutory process that's set out in national planning policy. And just to give a sort of simple overview of the key steps, we're at step 2 in a sort of 5-step process to getting the plan adopted. The first step in this process took place in, we undertook a consultation back in 2020, winter of 2020, 2021, and that was called our First Steps engagement. That was an issues and options consultation, so early stage consultation where we went out to everybody and asked the people of Haringey to tell us what the important issues are that matter to everybody in relation to planning in the borough. So we did that before preparing a draft local plan and preparing proposed policies to share with the community. So we're now at that second step in the process that's shown in blue on the screen, where we have gone away and taken into account all of the feedback we received at that first stage of the process. And we are now sharing for the first time a draft version of the local plan, which shows how we propose to, all of the detail that we propose to set out in that plan and all of the proposed policies. So it's a really key and important stage in the process where we can capture feedback from the community and take that into account. The next step in the process, where we go away, take on board all of the feedback that we received during this consultation, which will close on the 19th of December. After that, we'll go away, we'll review all of the comments that we receive, and we'll make changes where needed to the draft plan. And we'll take on board information that we receive also through evidence studies commissioned by specialists to help us to set out some robust justification for these policies. And the next stage will be another consultation where we come out again and publish again a second draft of this plan, and that will be called the proposed submission plan. So we're aiming to get there by spring summer of 2026. Following that, there are 2 more steps towards adoption, which involve bringing that further refined draft plan to examination, submitting it to a planning inspector for their approval. So we're aiming for winter 2026 to have the plan adopted. So how is the draft plan structured? Well, it's a big document. It needs to cover all policies that relate to new development in the borough. And so we've had to split it into 3 volumes to try and make it easier to navigate. So part 1 of the draft plan sets out the broad strategy for the plan. So the spatial vision, it sets out a placemaking framework for Haringey. So the big picture, the objectives, the priorities, and our approach in this draft local plan. And it also sets out the overarching spatial strategy. So the map of where we think development should be delivered in the borough. Then we have the two bigger volumes of the plan. Part 2 covers all of the neighbourhood policies in the borough, and then part 3 covers all of the policies that apply everywhere in the borough. So they're not area specific. That would include things like our design policies or our climate change policies that new development, wherever it happens in the borough, should aim to meet. So tonight we're talking about Crouch End and Muswell Hill. So of course, those are neighbourhood policies. So we are looking at these policies can be found in Volume 2, Part 2 of the draft local plan. These slides, I should also say, will be available. We're going to upload them after this webinar onto the website. And so you'll be able to refer back to everything that we're sharing with you tonight. And there are some hyperlinks that are included on the slide. So you'll be able to click on this image on the left, which will take you straight to the relevant page of our website where you can find all of the neighbourhoods in the borough. So our spatial strategy, which sets out where development we think development should or shouldn't happen in the borough, and where we're seeking your feedback on whether you agree or don't agree with what's being proposed in this first draft. This is a map of Haringey. All of the areas shown in orange are areas that have been identified for enhance. Those could include enhancing the public realm. It might be sort of some smaller scale infill development that would help to further enhance the existing character of an area. And then there are also some areas that have been identified as appropriate for potentially for transform. Transform is shown in purple. Those are areas where larger scale, more comprehensive development might take place, or development which would then sort of bring a new use or a new character to that local area. So, for example, it could be an industrial site that has a big car park on it, and in that very large space, there could be something sort of completely new, introducing a new use co-located next to that industrial site. So, moving on to then the neighbourhood chapters. So we've got 11 neighbourhoods identified in Haringey. These neighbourhoods have been taken from our 2015 characterisation study. So you could see on the left-hand side there of the map, we've got our Muswell Hill neighbourhood area and our Crouch End neighbourhood area identified there. They are not defined by political or statutory sort of boundaries to these areas. They're more just to help us have a conversation and make sure that we're taking an even approach to considering every different part of the borough, and a tool to help us catch all of the important local knowledge about placemaking, and that each different main town centre and neighbourhood of the borough is considered as part of the plan. So each neighbourhood chapter is then sort of structured in the same format. So for every neighbourhood chapter, we first of all have a vision and overarching neighbourhood policies at the front of the chapter. We have a map which sets out all of the areas that have been identified as placemaking focus areas at that part. And then as the chapter moves on into more detail, each placemaking focus area is then sort of zoomed in on. So that central image there is showing an example of a placemaking focus area within the Tottenham Hale District Centre. Placemaking focus areas can cover more than one development site, and it's about trying to think about opportunities for new development in a joined up and holistic way, and the spaces in between. Sometimes it can be beneficial to think about the connections between sites, the relationships between them, improvements to streets and to public spaces that might not fall neatly within the red line ownership boundary of individual development sites. So that's how placemaking focus areas can help us to make sure we're capturing the opportunity of the broader benefits for the local area and the neighbourhood by thinking about things together in this way. And then each chapter then dives into the detail of individual site allocations. So those red line sites that you can see on the central image that fall within that particular placemaking focus area, each one of those sites has an individual section with which sets out further detail. You can see the red line plan with the individual buildings more clearly, and that part of the chapter summarises in detail what could be proposed for that site, what the potential of the development in terms of if it's a development that's delivering new homes or if it's a development that's delivering a quantum of new workspace, what's being proposed in the plan currently for that individual site. And it also gives detailed policy guidance that sets out, for example, what existing uses currently take place on this site and what are we proposing could be potentially appropriate new uses on the site, whether it's more of the same or if there could be some other new uses that might be appropriate on that site. And it's also important to note that site allocations are an opportunity for the council to indicate to everyone, to the public and also to developers, what sort of uses on a site could potentially be that the council would like to see potentially come forward on these sites. It's not to say that a project is happening and a permission has been granted. It's more providing clear guidance on what the council would like to see come forward to help us achieve the objectives and help us kind of ensure that the borough vision is realised and that local needs are also met. So that's why it's so important to have the detailed feedback from the community and from all of you through this consultation, because it's local people who really know and understand what the needs are for those sites. So moving on to Crouch End chapter of the plan. So during our first steps consultation in 2020, people told us that we really need more greenery, street trees and wider pavements in the town centre, especially around the clock tower. There were some concerns expressed about the closure of Hornsey Town Hall at the time and the associated loss of cultural gathering spaces, and a call for making sure that we do provide those opportunities in Crouch End for cultural production and consumption. There was a lack of open spaces and places identified for the community to gather in the town centre, and there was strong support for nurturing Crouch End's creative community in general, through potential meanwhile use of vacant shop units. So that was one thing that came up in the comments we received. So the chapter sets out a vision, first of all, the broad vision for Crouch End. So Crouch End in 2042 will have enhanced its identity as a thriving neighbourhood with a unique character, creativity and community spirit. The district centre will have been enhanced, traditional shop fronts restored, and cultural uses will have been protected. And a network of high-quality public realm will have been delivered to help create greener, safer and more accessible streets, including new public spaces. So the next more detailed step of the chapter, it sets out the key policies and the placemaking focus areas, or PFAs, as we've shortened them to. So this map shows there are two placemaking focus areas identified in Crouch End. Area 1 covers most of the Crouch End town centre, and Area 2 is focused around Park Road. And we'll dive into those in a bit more detail on the following slides. But just to recap over some of the key neighbourhood policies for Crouch End that are covered on the left-hand side of the slide there. So the draft plan proposes that there should be at least 250 new homes and more jobs created in Crouch End. That we should prioritise preserving and enhancing the rich built heritage of the area, and that we should enhance the vitality and vibrancy of the district centre, including by greening the town centre, which is identified as a strategic priority for the area because Crouch End has less greenery in the centre in comparison to nearby neighbourhood areas, like Highgate, for example. And then safer resisting ground floor conversions is also mentioned in the policies. This is something which, because most of Crouch End is covered by a conservation area, the policies sort of set an encouragement for making sure that we resist ground floor conversions to residential in order to make sure that we don't harm the character of the conservation area. And the policies also identify a need for safer pedestrian and cyclist movement through the district centre, so a support and encouragement for new development proposals that would make that happen or support that happening. And then new walking routes connecting the neighbourhood's cultural and other assets, and interventions to support on-street eating and dining. So those are the key points covered by the Crouch End neighbourhood policy. So placemaking focus area 1, Crouch End town centre. This has been identified as an area for enhance rather than transformation due to the character of the conservation area and of the town centre. The plan proposes that this enhanced area should enhance the town centre by creating a greener, pedestrian-friendly public realm, including exploring opportunities to improve public space around the clock tower and enhancing local identity through new public art. It also sets out the importance of taking a conservation-led approach to placemaking. So that includes preserving and enhancing the conservation area and also restoring the unity of historic shop frontages wherever possible. And then finally, enhancing community facilities to support cultural activities. So the strategy for this placemaking focus area identifies the importance of working closely with the neighbourhood forum and local businesses to help identify the existing needs of the community with regards to those facilities and cultural activities. Placemaking focus area 2 in Crouch End is on Park Road. This is also identified as an enhanced area. And some of the priorities for this placemaking focus area include enhancing the climate resilience of this location as part of a new residential mixed-use, residential-led, that should say, apologies, mixed-use development at Linton Road depot site. So that means it's a mixed-use development that does also have some residential accommodation within it on the floors above ground level. The plans would support new public green space and shared amenity as part of a new mixed-use development in this location. It would encourage active street frontages, in particular along the Grove that you can see there on the plan, and also sets out the need for improving the public realm in front of Veryan Court that fronts onto Park Road, an existing residential estate there. It also identifies the need to enhance the residential character of Park Road itself. So that includes things like repairing the historic street pattern along Park Road. And there is a site allocation that you can see that's got a red line boundary around it there, CESA04. So that's on the site of a former petrol station and car wash. And so the proposal is that that could be replaced with new infill residential development that would align with the street frontages and front gardens and the urban pattern of the adjacent housing along Park Road. So sort of restoring that historic residential street character to that part of Park Road. There's one site allocation. We've sort of covered, and we've done an overview through talking about those placemaking focus areas. These site allocations provide the more detailed site-specific information for all of those placemaking focus areas. And then the one that's at the end of the list there that's shown in blue is Ramsey Court. That is a garage site that's just a little bit further up Park Road. And that's his proposal for a small infill site with, again, potential for residential, new residential development on an existing garage site. Now, all of these site allocations are hyperlinks. So if you do want to find out more and you do want to look at these slides after the presentation, once we've got them up on our website, which should be in the next couple of days, you'll be able to click on any one of these links and it will take you directly to the relevant page in our website for that particular site allocation. So we're doing our best to make a very big, complicated document as accessible and easy to navigate as it can be. It is a total of around 860 pages of policy. So I hope this is a helpful occasion for you to find out about how to jump to go and look at a particular site if there's one that is of most interest to you. So moving on to Muswell Hill. At First Steps consultation in 2020, these are some of the key feedback points that we got from the community. So there was strong support for promoting independent businesses, distinctive shop fronts and murals, and also distinctive shop fronts and murals to enhance local identity, so working with local artists. People also called for more play spaces and places for young people and raised concerns about pedestrian safety in general. There were some comments about spilling over on busy pavements that aren't very wide in the town centre. So there were some general calls for improvements to the public realm in the town centre. There were concerns raised regarding air pollution and traffic congestion, which we know is an issue in the town centre. And we also received feedback about that really emphasised the importance of Alexandra Palace and the park as a very valuable cultural asset and green space, both locally and sort of at a London and national level. So the vision for Muswell Hill that's set out in the draft plan states that in 2024, the neighbourhood will be enhanced as a flourishing historic Edwardian neighbourhood, and its heritage assets and fine views over London will have been preserved and further celebrated. Muswell Hill District Centre will continue to be a vibrant district centre with well-supported independent businesses, and Alexandra Palace will have strengthened its identity as a landmark heritage asset and a leisure and cultural venue of national importance. So here we have the map of Muswell Hill neighbourhood that identifies 3 placemaking focus areas. It's a larger area geographically, so those placemaking areas appear smaller on this map because we had to zoom out to include all 3 of them. So number 1 in the middle of the plan is the Muswell Hill District Centre. So that's around the area around Muswell Hill roundabout. Then number 2 is a placemaking focus area identified that around the junction opposite St James's Church, and it includes the Arts Cinema and a section of Fortis Green Road. And then the 3rd area that is captured in this section of the plan that's a placemaking focus area is the Pinkham Way site right to the north on the boundary with Barnet and Enfield there just to the east. So in terms of the key priorities and policy priorities for this neighbourhood, again, we've identified capacity for at least 250 new homes and more jobs delivered through the draft local plan. There was a high priority on preserving and enhancing Muswell Hill's historic streets and landscapes. The policy also sets out a requirement to take a proactive approach to securing the long-term future of Alexandra Palace, and a policy on protecting and enhancing the strategic view from Alexandra Palace to St Paul's Cathedral. It's the only strategic protected view identified in the London plan that we have in the borough of Haringey, and it's the policies highlight the importance of protecting that strategic view. Resisting ground floor conversions in the historic town centre, again, being in a conservation area, the policy proposes to resist conversions to residential in the town centre, as that may harm the historic character of the conservation area. And it also sets out a need to improve connectivity for pedestrians and cyclists, and so a strong encouragement for new development to support that. We do also, this chapter also identifies Alexandra Park and Palace as a cultural quarter. And this slide just summarises the key points that are set out in that part of the plan. And it's worth saying that the council has been in dialogue with the Alexandra Park and Palace Trust regarding the content of this policy. So the Alexandra Park and Palace Cultural Quarter will be enhanced as a unique historic and cultural destination through a sustainable and heritage-led approach to new development. And proposals for any new development that take place within the cultural quarter should support and enhance cultural activities, heritage, nature and leisure functions. They should also preserve and enhance the Grade 2 listed Alexandra Park and Palace and its setting. Proposals should deliver a mix of uses that support the role as a regional and national cultural and visitor destination. They should enhance biodiversity, and they should improve accessibility and connectivity, including with links to Muswell Hill and to Wood Green from the Park and Palace site. And proposals should also support inclusive and diverse outdoor cultural programming through a high quality public realm. So we're going to run through an overview of those 3 placemaking focus areas that are identified in the Muswell Hill neighbourhood area. So to start with, this is the Muswell Hill District Centre East placemaking focus area. So it's an enhance area. The dashed line shows the boundary of the enhance area here. The purple area that's shown along Muswell Hill Broadway and Fortis Green Road is the boundary of the district centre. So we can see that there are 2 site allocations that fall within the boundaries of this placemaking focus area. Number 1 is at Summerlin Gardens car park, just behind the Marks and Spencers on Muswell Hill Broadway. And site number 2 is tucked away just behind Muswell Hill Library. So in terms of the overarching priorities and placemaking strategy for this area, the plan is proposing that they should be enhancing the town centre, so exploring opportunities for mixed-use muse development on backland sites, including affordable workspace, and helping to create a more walkable public realm, including opportunities for more community-led public art. The draft plan is also proposing a conservation-led approach to placemaking for this area. So preserving and enhancing the conservation area and celebrating Muswell Hill's cultural heritage and sense of identity are really important. And that's a key part of this policy. And part of that will be also supporting the restoration of the continuity of historic shop frontages where those may have been covered up or changed over time. The policy also supports improving climate resilience in the area, so including through things like introducing more street trees and soft landscaping and outdoor seating as part of new development, and taking steps to reduce air pollution in the area. So placemaking focus area number 2 is at St James's Church Junction. So here we've got the St James's Church to the south of that map. And then the placemaking focus area is denoted by the dashed line, and we've got 2 site allocations sitting within there. Site allocation MHSAO3 with the red line boundary around it is at the site of the Sainsbury's supermarket, with then a Prince Mews, little mews that runs along the back of the housing there. And there's a sort of alleyway with a closed, a bit of a closed frontage and a dead end that runs along next to Sainsbury's there. So all of that's included in that site allocation at the moment. And then the other proposed site allocation for this placemaking focus area is MHSAO4 that you can see to the southwest corner of this map, and that sits behind the Arts Cinema. So it covers the surface car park that's behind the cinema, and it also catches a wedge, sort of a triangular wedge-like ending to the high street there on Fortis Green Road, and a couple of shop units that are right on the corner there that could be improved. So what are the key priorities for the strategy for this placemaking focus area? It's an enhanced area, so enhancing the public realm is again an important part of this. Improving the network of mews and places that sit behind the main high streets of Muswell Hill Broadway and Fortis Green Road to remove dead ends and provide continuous active frontages and a more connected and walkable public realm. Greening the centre is also forms part of the strategy. So planting more trees and soft landscaping, providing a climate resilient and attractive public realm, including in front of the cinema. There's quite a lot of hard landscaping there, so perhaps potential to introduce more greening in that area and enhance climate resilience. And then finally, preserving and enhancing the conservation area. So again, an opportunity to restore and unify traditional shop fronts, including along Fortis Green Road there. Finally, placemaking area 3 in Muswell Hill is the site at Pinkham Way. So most of the placemaking focus area is covered by the site allocation that you can see with the red line boundary, but the placemaking focus area does sort of go a bit broader and beyond that. This is a site which has quite complex land ownership, and it sits next to Hollickwood Park, and it's also right on the borough boundary with the North Circular running to the north, and we've got New Southgate is off the map here to running further north. So it's, and then there's a industrial estate, the Bounds Green Industrial Estate, just over the other side of the railway line to the east. So it's a sort of a location which has several challenges in terms of coming up with a coherent and well master planned approach. So that's why it's been identified as a placemaking focus area, because the draft plan puts an emphasis on the importance of a carefully master planned approach to this site. Some of the priorities for the site include enhancing access to nature, so making sure that we enhance and expand the ecological corridor and significant ecological area that exists run along the railway line to the east. Making sure that the site takes the opportunity to explore nature restoration and deliver new publicly accessible open space, as well as protecting biodiversity. The site is also identified as an opportunity for new employment space. There is a local demand for new logistics and distribution floor space on this site. It's not far from that Bounds Green Industrial Estate, and it's just off the North Circular, and London always needs these sorts of land to be identified for these sorts of uses. So there's that, and then also providing that the strategy sets out the aim of providing affordable workspace within the neighbourhood. The North London Waste Plan also identifies this as a priority area for new waste management facilities. Again, another infrastructural challenge for London, and that's another it's a large site, and so this is another use that has been identified in the draft plan as a potential appropriate use for the site. And then finally, enhancing north-south connectivity to Southgate. So any new proposals for this area should seek to support improved connections up through to New Southgate from here and across the North Circular. So there are more site allocations in the Muswell Hill neighbourhood area, and not all of them fall within a placemaking focus area. So the first 5 shown in black here, we've touched on those in the slides that we've just run through, as they fall within the 3 placemaking focus areas in the neighbourhood of Muswell Hill. But there are some further site allocations that are not located in a cluster or in an area where they relate necessarily directly to another allocation, and so they are still included in the plan, but they're just listed separately, following on from the placemaking focus areas within that chapter, and those are all the ones that you can see highlighted in blue here. So it includes the site allocation for Alexandra Palace. There's a new proposed site allocation for a telephone exchange site also in Muswell Hill, site at the Royal British Legion Hall, and a few others there. So we don't really have time for me to go into detail on each site allocation as part of this presentation, because we're really keen to hear your questions and do our best to answer those this evening. But as I said, if you're particularly interested in a specific site listed here, or you want to take some time to go away and scroll through each of these are hyperlinks, and the slides will be posted to the website. So this is another way you can get easily to those, find them easily on our website. So before we open for questions, just a reminder for the key ways in which you can tell us your thoughts and submit your feedback on the draft local plan. So whilst we do have our consultation website, and the link is on this slide, which also has a series of surveys. So once you navigate to whichever chapter you would like to focus on, or whichever part you would like to provide a comment on, if you scroll down that page, you should find a simple survey like this that's shown on the right-hand side there. And then there is always a question at the end that says, please explain why you've answered this way, and a big box where you can sort of fill in freely your full thoughts and comments on that part of the plan. If you would prefer to just summarize all of your feedback in an email, that absolutely counts, and we welcome feedback just by email. Please do send it to the email address that's at the top here. And then we are running a series of in-person drop-in sessions across the borough. We have prepared paper surveys. We're only a small team, so unfortunately, paper surveys is sort of only available if you come along to one of those in-person events and hand it back to our staff at the time. But that is another alternative way of submitting feedback for those who would prefer to do that rather than sending an email or submitting a response on the website. And just a very quick plug to say that we've added loads of new events to the programme that will be happening in the borough, across the borough, over the next couple of weeks. So please do check out our community engagement events timetable. Again, the button on the left-hand side here will be, it's a clickable link, or hopefully you've managed to find your way there already on our website to this button that says community engagement events. And there you can find out all of the details about both our online events and our in-person drop-in sessions and workshops that you can sign up for.